The grand spire of the Galactic Council rose above the gas giant Ixion V, its spiraling obsidian towers crackling with static from the constant subspace transmissions coursing through it. Inside, representatives of over 300 species screamed over one another, their voices a cacophony of desperation and fury. Holograms flickered with battle reports, death tolls, system collapses. The war between the Zelvith Accord and the Tyrasian Dominion was no longer a conflict. It was a devouring black hole, pulling every civilization closer to annihilation. Ambassador Kyril Ven stood at the center of the storm. He was small, even for a Zelari, a thin, six-limbed creature with pale silver skin and bioluminescent eyes that dimmed with age. He had once negotiated peace between species that fed on each other's young. He had calmed the rotary plague crisis by convincing 9 star empires to share their medical secrets. He was no stranger to chaos. But now he was afraid. He raised one delicate arm, signaling for silence. The room didn't notice. So he shouted, "Enough." His voice echoed unnaturally, carried by council amplification fields. The bickering faltered. Heads turned. Dozens of eyes, tendrils, visors, and photoreceptors focused on him. Kyril's voice dropped to a whisper, but the chamber stayed quiet. That was his skill, not shouting down a storm, but making others want to hear the eye of it. He looked around at the carnage unfolding on the holoscreens. Then he spoke. "Many of you know me. I have served this council for over 300 galactic cycles. I have brokered more peace than war, and I have never begged." He paused. "But I am begging you now. Please, keep Earth out of this war." Silence. A ripple of confusion swept through the chamber. A few murmurs. A low scoff from the Dominion ambassador. A scaled brute named Virok rumbled like thunder from a nearby platform. "They are primitives," Virok growled. "Insignificant. Let them try to resist us if they dare." "They are not primitives," Kyril said sharply, his voice cutting through like a blade. He turned slowly, looking at each faction. "You all think you understand them. You do not. You saw them rise from planetary war to interstellar travel in 50 cycles and called them fast learners. You saw them tear through the Karzik raiders and said, 'Impressive.' You called their weapons creative, their AI unstable, their psychology dangerous." He stopped in front of the central days. "You're wrong. You've misunderstood them entirely. They are not dangerous because of what they've done. They are dangerous because of what they've chosen not to do." Another silence. A deeper one. Kyril looked down at his trembling hands. "They live on a planet that has tried to kill them every day for hundreds of thousands of years. Their entire evolution is built on surviving pain, conflict, extinction. They are not used to peace. They've had to create it, forge it, maintain it, and if you force them to let it go..." His voice broke. "You will not win. None of us will." The chamber didn't erupt. It didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. For the first time in memory, the Galactic Council had no rebuttal, no procedural delay, no diplomatic counterstroke, only fear. And in the depths of it, on the edge of the Sol system, Earth remained silent, waiting. The Galactic Council kept no official dossiers on Earth. It wasn't that they lacked information. It was that no one could agree on what, exactly, they were looking at. Some species called humans adaptive. Others called them chaotic. The Dominion referred to them as unstable flesh anomalies. But those who truly understood, like Ambassador Kyril Ven, knew one truth above all. Humanity didn't rise. They survived. 53 cycles ago, Earth broadcast its presence with the now famous Hello Burst, a greeting encoded in every major galactic language at once. Nobody noticed at first. A backwater blue planet near a yellow sun, still running on fossil fuels and national borders. Cute. But within 10 cycles, humans had replicated faster than light travel, a feat that had taken most species centuries, if not millennia. Another 10 cycles, and they weren't just traveling. They were rewriting the technology. Their warp designs became sleeker, more efficient, even dangerous. Then came the Uldari incident. A minor pirate clan tried to raid an unaligned Terran research station on Proxima V, a standard smash and grab. None of them made it back. It wasn't the fact that Earth had defenses. Every colony had defenses. It was how they responded. The humans didn't retaliate conventionally. They didn't issue threats. They launched a virus. It spread silently through Uldari space, disabling every ship's navigation system for 72 hours. Not permanently, just long enough to make the point. Every Uldari vessel drifted, helpless, while a single Terran transmission repeated on loop. You are now experiencing 1% of our restraint. Please consider this your only warning. The pirates disbanded. After that, the galaxy watched them more carefully. Human scientists didn't limit themselves to physics. They explored neurology, ethics, subdimensional fluid mechanics, and then built machines that could predict diplomatic outcomes better than most council species could. The humans weren't guessing. They were modeling, practicing, testing, and the results were terrifying. They didn't fight unless they had to. But when they did, they didn't just win. They humiliated. The Uldari Uprising ended in 34 minutes after a single fleet made it through Earth's black glass wall, a defense system still classified by every galactic intelligence agency. The Ilgan cyber war. Humanity didn't deploy troops. They sent poems embedded with quantum malware and rewrote the enemy's sentient code until it asked to defect. But the most chilling part wasn't their success. It was their silence. Humans never boasted, never explained, never gloated. When the Zelvith offered them a seat on the council, they declined. "We're not ready," they said. They were lying. They weren't not ready. They just didn't want the rest of the galaxy to know how ready they were. Ambassador Venn knew this. He had visited Earth once. He remembered it vividly. The forests and storms, the music, the strange way humans laughed even in sorrow. But what haunted him most was what a general had told him in confidence during a private conversation. "We learned long ago that power isn't about who has the bigger gun. It's about who can choose not to use it. That's why we're quiet. That's why we're patient. But if someone brings the fight to our door..." The general had looked at the stars, then back at Venn. "We don't believe in half measures." Venn hadn't slept for a week after that. Now, as Tyrasian warships crept closer to Sol's borders, Venn wasn't afraid of what humanity would do. He was afraid that they'd finally decided to stop holding back. It started with a blip. One Tyrasian cruiser, just one, pursuing a Zelvith stealth vessel through a poorly charted corridor of space. It shouldn't have mattered. The Zelvith were fleeing, the Tyrasians were chasing, and the rest of the galaxy had seen it all 100 times before. But this time, the chase crossed an invisible line. Sol Sector, Earth's backyard. By galactic law, it was neutral space. By human standards, it was something else entirely. Home. The Zelvith scout barely made it past Neptune before its engines failed. It tumbled toward Jupiter's gravity, well before disintegrating in a flash of blue plasma. No distress signal, no escape pods. The Tyrasian cruiser slowed its pursuit and drifted just inside the orbital edge of Saturn, scanning debris for tech salvage. It would have been routine, until Earth responded. Every major power picked up the same signal on their quantum bands. No encryption, no political pleasantries, just one line. "This is a formal warning. Leave Sol space immediately." Tyrasian command dismissed it. Their vessel had entered countless border zones during skirmishes. Earth's laws didn't apply to them. One ship, one stray orbit. Not an act of war. They didn't even reply. They stayed for 6 minutes. On the 7th, the Tyrasian ship ceased to exist. There was no flash, no explosion, not even energy residue. One moment it was there. The next, it was not. Sensors caught nothing. No trace elements. No warp signature. Not even heat. It was like the universe had erased it, not destroyed it, but unmade it. Tyration Control went into a panic. Backup ships were dispatched. Long-range scans were initiated. Diplomats prepared messages to Earth demanding answers, or at least a warning of the counterstrike. But Earth didn't respond. Not with words. Instead, over the next 4 hours, every single Tyration probe, satellite, and drone within a 1 light-year radius of Sol went offline. Simultaneously. They didn't explode. They just stopped. The Galactic Council met in emergency session within the day. Tensions erupted. The Zelvith demanded Earth be protected as a neutral power. The Dominions screamed retaliation. And somewhere in the center, voice shaking, Ambassador Kyril Ven rose again. "This is how it begins," he said. They issued a warning. They acted on it precisely once. There were no civilians involved. No escalation. They didn't retaliate. They removed the threat. Surgically. Coldly. That wasn't an act of war. He looked around. It was a message. But the Council was fracturing. Dozens of powers had aligned with one faction or the other. Some saw Earth's precision as a stabilizing force. Others saw a threat. Tyration Fleet Admiral Groth issued a public address within hours. "We do not yield to shadows. We will show Earth the meaning of power." Kyril Ven sat in silence as the footage looped. Groth's sneer. The crowd's cheer. The arrogance. Earth had only removed a single cruiser. But Ven knew what everyone refused to admit. That was mercy. And it would be the last one. The galaxy expected a statement. A counter-threat. A diplomatic maneuver. Anything. But Earth said nothing. Not a word. Not a signal. Not a flicker on any known spectrum. The entire Sol system went dark. At first, they thought it was a comms failure, but probes stationed near the Orc cloud started dropping offline in a perfect, synchronized sequence. No warning, no trace. Then the relays at Alpha Centauri, which monitored Earth from the galactic edge, blinked out one by one, as though a hand had moved across a map, silencing each point. Ships sent to investigate returned blind. Their sensors failed. Their star charts scrambled. One ship's AI reported seeing reflections where space should be. Another recorded its own engines running in reverse time for 0.004 seconds. Then, Earth's satellites vanished. Not destroyed, just gone. Hundreds of orbital units, civilian and military alike, blinked off every interstellar register. Optical telescopes still saw Earth, the planet, the moon, the sun, but everything around it ceased to be visible. Even Sol itself began to look strange, as though space around it were being folded, like cloth pulled tight over something sharp. And the strangest part? No response. The humans didn't issue a threat. They didn't explain. The silence became a roar, louder than any declaration of war, heavier than any bombardment. Something was happening, something massive, and no one could see it. The Council scrambled. Emergency meetings became round-the-clock deliberations. Security measures tightened. Intelligence factions tried to breach Earth's veil. Every one of them failed. One stealth probe returned with its internal memory wiped and its casing partially molecularly inverted. Another simply turned itself around and returned without command, repeating only one phrase in a neutral Terran voice. "We see you. Turn back." Admiral Groth of the Tyrasian Dominion refused to stand down. He called it a bluff. And so, the Dominion launched an armada. 1,200 warships, fully armed, carrier-class dreadnoughts, cloaked destroyers, cybernetic swarms. It was the largest single-fleet movement since the fall of Vascarn Prime. It was meant to be overwhelming. Unignorable. Final. As the fleet approached Sol, the galaxy held its breath. Military analysts debated on every channel. Politicians issued grave-faced addresses. Some believed Earth would be forced to surrender. Others thought they'd unveil new tech. But no one expected nothing. And that's exactly what happened. The Tyrasian fleet reached the edge of the Sol system. And nothing happened. No defense grid. No sudden weapon fire. No hail. No sign of resistance. Just a star and its planets, suspended in an eerie quiet. "Where is the enemy?" one of the fleet commanders asked. That's when the transmission came. It didn't scream. It didn't threaten. It didn't gloat. Just one calm voice. Human, female, mid-30s by audio analysis. "We do not desire war, but we do not fear it either. This is your final moment of choice. Decide wisely." The recording ended. Seconds ticked by. And then, without sound, flash, or trace, the first of the Tyrasian ships vanished. Then another. Then 20 at once. No impact. No heat. Just gaps in the formation, like parts of a painting being erased, brushstroke by brushstroke. Command channels filled with screams. Pilots begging for orders. Systems failing. Reality itself folding. From the outside, observers saw only one thing. The fleet entered Sol and began disappearing. For 3 hours, the Tyrasian armada was unmade. Ship after ship vanished without cause, without trace, without violence. Just gone. Sensor logs corrupted. Chrono recorders blank. Survivors, if they could be called that, reported nonsense. Looping stars, whispers through static, visions of home on fire or frozen. Then, finally, Earth spoke. It wasn't on a diplomatic channel. It didn't come through any known frequency. The message arrived simultaneously, in the minds of every sentient being within 1,000 light years. Not spoken, not heard, but understood. It came with perfect clarity, bypassing language, bypassing species. It came as truth. "We asked to be left alone. We gave you warnings. Now you've made us choose." In the Galactic Council, ambassadors clutched their heads. Some screamed. A Vortec diplomat collapsed into a coma. The atmosphere in the chamber turned cold, unnaturally cold. Lights flickered. Every AI presence disconnected itself simultaneously, citing a new and unknown logic construct. Preservation priority override. Origin equals Terran signal. The voice continued. "We do not hate you. We did not seek this war. But you crossed the boundary. And now we must end it." Across the stars, screens lit up with coordinates. Random systems, peaceful systems. Every one of them had once hosted secret Tyrasian black sites, intelligence hubs, or weapons test facilities, places hidden even from their own allies, places they believed unfindable. Every one of them began to detonate. No ships were seen, no warheads tracked. Planets simply bloomed into fire. Oceans turned to vapor, skies stripped away in milliseconds. It was surgical, precise, merciless. Then came the final image. A broadcast from Sol. Visual, this time. The veil lifted for 30 seconds. The galaxy saw Earth and what it had become. Dozens of massive structures now orbited the planet, monoliths of obsidian and metal radiating unreadable energy. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They weren't even visible on standard scans. But they watched, and they waited. The moon had been split, deliberately, surgically. Inside it, glimpses of impossible architecture, lattice-like networks pulsing with light. It was no longer a moon. It was a gate, a portal to something no civilization had ever witnessed, let alone understood. At the center of the image, Earth stood quiet, wrapped in a lattice of protective energy, humming with dormant power. There were no fleets, no armies, just silence. And then one final sentence. "This is Earth's last broadcast. If you come again, we will not respond. We will remove you." And just like that, the veil returned. Sol disappeared from view. Across the galaxy, no one spoke. No one moved. In the Dominion's war chambers, Admiral Growth stared at the empty star map. sweating through his scales. Of his 1,200 ships, only 7 returned. All of them were silent. Crew missing. Ship logs corrupted. Each one bore the same message, etched into their hulls in perfectly cut Terran script. This was restraint. The war ended that day, not with a treaty, not with a surrender, but with a decision. Never enter Sol again. And from that day forward, in every spacefaring culture, from the crystalline minds of the Vorani to the blood singers of Roth, children were taught a single universal truth. Do not provoke Earth. The war was over. Earth hadn't claimed victory. It had simply ended it. And that, more than anything, shattered the galaxy. Tyrasia reeled. Their pride, their power, their fleets, gone in hours. Growth, the once feared admiral, was stripped of command and confined to a mind stabilization orb. His last coherent words. They weren't a species. They were a mirror. The Galactic Council convened again, desperate for stability. But this time, it wasn't unity they sought. It was distance from Earth. All contact is suspended indefinitely, said the Vortec. Full trade sanctions, muttered the Ilnari. They've overreached. They've transcended, whispered the Zelveth ambassador, her voice trembling. And we don't know what they are anymore. But Ambassador Kyril Ven didn't speak. He just watched them all. Arguing, blaming, fracturing. Not because of what Earth had done, but because of what it meant. Everything they believed about power was wrong. For cycles, the great powers had assumed strength came from dominance. Fleets, territory, control. Earth had none of that. No galactic holdings, no superpower allies, no legacy seat in the Council. And yet, the Dominion's greatest fleet had been erased in silence. No warships, no speeches, no glory, just precision. And now, envy began to take root. If Earth can do it, whispered Chancellor Juno of the Ilari, why not us? The statement was barely spoken before it spread. The idea. The sickness. Dozens of species began scrambling through their archives, reactivating ancient programs, dusting off forbidden technologies. Science labs worked overtime. Intelligence agencies seated agents near Sol's edge, not to strike, but to observe. If they could learn Earth's secret, they could be next. But they missed the point. Because Earth hadn't built a weapon. They had become one. The silence from Sol wasn't absence. It was restraint. And now, alliances that had stood for centuries began to crack. The Tyrasian Dominion fractured into warring factions, some calling for vengeance, others begging for diplomacy. The Vortec Collective began to collapse under internal suspicion, which minds had been in contact with Terran thought, which were influenced. Even the Council was no longer whole. Some members quietly opened backdoor channels to Earth. Others began treating Sol space like a mythical forbidden zone, spoken of in whispers, mapped only in red. Ambassador Ven stood before a half-empty chamber and finally spoke. You all misunderstand, he said. A dozen eyes turned toward him. Earth didn't retaliate because they were threatened. They responded because we proved we never understood them. He paused, then stepped toward the center. They were not hiding power. They were hiding mercy. The chamber fell into silence. Across the galaxy, fear mutated into obsession. Every species began a quiet arms race, not against Earth, but against each other. Because the question wasn't, what if Earth attacks? It was, what if someone else learns what they know? And amid the turmoil, a final signal leaked from an unknown location in deep space. Only a handful of species ever decoded it. A message sent from a Terran outpost on the edge of the void. Only 5 words. We're still not done evolving. They called themselves the Obsidian Accord, a coalition of fringe civilizations, outcasts, and war scientists expelled from the galactic core for dangerous experiments and extremist ideologies. Disconnected from the Galactic Council, they thrived in the lawless dark. No ethics. No oversight, just progress, whatever the cost. And now they had a new obsession. Earth. Where the Council feared, the Accord saw opportunity. They weren't interested in treaties or survival. They weren't burdened by fear. They wanted to understand, to disassemble, to claim whatever secrets Earth was hiding. Earth is not a god. Their leader, Vokon the Severed, broadcast across outlaw channels. They are a species, and species can bleed. No one in the Council responded. No one dared. But Earth never needed words. The Obsidian Accord's fleet launched from the Tychon expanse. 9 command ships, 50 interceptors, and a weapon known only as the Wonder, capable of piercing temporal shields. They didn't head straight for Sol. They went for Pluto. Not the dwarf planet. The listening post hidden behind it. A relay station Earth had never acknowledged, never armed, never even protected. It was bait. And the Accord took it. They reached it in standard formation. No resistance. No transmission. Just an inert station, barely powered, floating in the void. They docked. They entered. What they found was not machinery. It was a room. Round. Empty. A single chair in the center. And on that chair sat a human. Old. Calm. Wearing a black uniform without insignia. He looked up, smiled gently, and said, "You came a long way to find nothing." Vokon stepped forward, weapon raised. "What is this place?" The man shrugged. "A thought. A question. A door you shouldn't have opened." And then the doors sealed. Across every ship in the fleet, power surge. Artificial gravity reversed. Oxygen levels twisted into impossible chemical compounds. I-cores screamed in alien code before melting into slag. And back in the command ship, Vokon watched in horror as his own crew began, forgetting. Their names. Their mission. Themselves. He tried to retreat, to fire, to escape. But when he turned back to the human, there was no one there. Just the chair. And silence. The entire Accord fleet vanished from all known records less than 4 minutes later. No wreckage. No distress signals. No echoes on time echo satellites. Gone. Even the Wonder, built over 6 decades using forbidden dark star metallurgy, disappeared from every database. Only a single message was ever recovered from their final transmission, scrambled and nearly lost in the radiation storm that followed. Translated into Galactic Standard, it read, "We are not the apex. We are the warning." After that, even the criminal underworld went quiet. Syndicates stopped recruiting near Sol space. Warlords erased Earth from their nav charts. Whispers of the Obsidian Accord became taboo, like invoking the curse. And the galaxy learned something deeper than fear. Earth didn't need to respond with violence. Years passed. The name Earth became a ghost in galactic conversation. No ship dared approach Sol. No probe returned data. Entire star maps began to omit the system entirely, as though it had ceased to exist. But it hadn't. It was just watching. And waiting. The Council tried to resume normalcy. Trade reopened. Treaties reformed. The Tyrasian Dominion splintered into minor regional powers. The Obsidian Accord was mythologized into a cautionary tale, a whispered warning for ambitious minds. But under it all, paranoia festered, because no one could forget the silence. Earth had spoken once, acted once, then vanished behind its veil again. No claim, no conquest, just a pause, a terrifying, infinite pause. Every species began preparing in their own way, not for war. They knew that was useless now, but for relevance, for a future where Earth might look their way again. The Vortec abandoned their AI empire and retreated into biological evolution, fusing with the strange flora of their ancestral homeworlds in hopes of transcending. The Ilnari began modifying their memories, erasing all Terran data from their youngest generations to preserve galactic sanity. Even the Council itself disbanded quietly. No announcement, just a collective fading into history. But Earth Earth remained still, until the day it disappeared. No flare, no light, just gone. Scanners registered no gravitational pull from Sol, no heat signature from its sun. Planets once known and charted, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all gone. The space where Earth had once been now read as null data. Not empty, not destroyed, just not there. A void beyond voids. And then, in every species language, across every known frequency, a final message arrived. Not loud, just present, like the whisper of a god in a quiet room. We are stepping away now. This galaxy was never ours to rule. We waited for peace. We warned of war. You chose. We listened. Then a pause. And the final line. You are not ready. The message ended. No one knew where it came from. No origin point. No trail. The signal simply existed. Not traveling, not moving, but being. And then it faded, leaving a stillness no civilization could quite describe. Some refused to believe it. Others formed cults around it. A few races, desperate for a second chance, sent expeditions into the void where Sol had once been. None returned. And so the galaxy moved on, slowly, quietly, in the shadow of what Earth had become. Children grew up never knowing the name of the blue planet, only hearing it in forbidden legends and hushed stories. But every species kept a lookout, deep within their sensor networks, a protocol hard-coded into their systems, a small subroutine labeled only. So Ol-Wat-Ti-Chaish. It never activated again. But it was never removed. And in that quiet, across stars now colder with history, one thought remained. Not fear, not anger, just a lingering whisper behind the stars. They could come back. And if they do, what will we be?